Hello and welcome back to Vox Popcast, the weekly pseudo-academic roundtable pop culture analysis with drinking and swearing. My name is Christopher Maverick, but you can call me Mav, and I am not once again here with my co-hosts because none of them are here because I'm doing something special this week. It's a little different than normal. Less drinking, probably less swearing. This is this week I am working. Yeah, I guess I'm working. It's extracurricular for my job. I am working with a group of students who at the University of Pittsburgh who do this thing every year called Games4SocialImpact. It is a game jam where they build socially conscious games based on a random theme. And I guess I am mentoring / advising / making sure nobody burns the building down. And I am here with lots of students, but first I want to introduce one of my colleagues who is, I guess you're organizing this? Is that fair?
I'm a co-organizer.
Okay.
Don't put it all on me.
This is Dr. Jessica FitzPatrick. This is the person who has the office 2 doors down from mine. So welcome.
It's so nice to see you outside of the hallway.
Yes. All right. So where are we? What are we doing?
So we are currently in a very cold building on Pitt's campus because they have refused to turn on the furnace yet this fall. So we're in an information science building. It has these wonderful kind of concrete grid ceilings, a general open concept floor plan, and some side like kitchenette and classrooms. And we took over the whole 3rd floor. And we are running a game jam. It started Friday evening at 6:00 p.m. and it's going to end. Phase 1 will end at noon on Sunday. That's when the students have to actually submit the games that they are building.
And for reference, as we record right now, it is 2:30 on Saturday. So they've been going not quite 24 hours.
Yeah. And they have about 24 hours left, right? And, you know, we give them food. We give them caffeine. I'm assuming probably around midnight there will be a candy raid. And we give them the space and some support so that way they can make tabletop and digital games. Last night was really fun. We introduced the rules of the game jam. We revealed this year's surprise theme, which is going to be the theme of revision. And people can use that however they want. I've been walking around and seeing people like brainstorming alternative definitions for what that might mean and how it might impact different elements of our lived existence. So that's kind of the where we are. Now, I think where we are also deals with who we're dealing with. So we're at Pitt, but we see so far, I've seen a lot of digital narrative and interactive design students.
Which is the program that Fitz and I work at. We work for the English department at the University of Pittsburgh. And through very, very complicated means, we work for a specific program that is jointly owned by the English department and the computer science department. So called the Digital Narrative and Interactive Design, not department, I guess.
It's a program. Yes, it's a program. Yeah.
Which is weird, and the distinctions of which are probably wholly uninteresting to anyone listening to this, and pretty much most of the students in the major. It's literally just administrative garbage.
Category. Yep.
But the point is, we work for the English department, and then there are other people here who work for the computer science department. And so very much, I think socially conscious gaming is probably a very fair thing that our students tend to be interested in.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it asks those humanities style questions while using computer science and information science technical skills. Right. So that's kind of what's in the air as you walk around here, right? That and like leftover bags of Cheetos from lunch.
Yeah, which that's the nice thing about doing the mentors. We don't have to do anything. I don't have to build anything, but I get free food as well. So that's what we are sitting here. And I thought for the show this week, we would investigate some of what the students are doing. I'm going to go through and I'm going to interview various students and have them tell us about their games and what they're building. But can you tell me, them? It's always weird. It's a weird thing about podcasting. It's like I'm going to ask a question that I know the answer to, which happens every week. If you ever hear me ask a dumb question on the show, I'm just doing it for you guys at home. I'm not really dumb.
It's all performative.
Let's believe that.
Only performative.
So what is socially conscious gaming?
Socially conscious gaming can be both a specific movement if we think about things like Games for Change and different organizations that explicitly set forth to find funding and promote game design that operates in a socially conscious way. It can also just be a mode of thinking about games and how they work in our communities and the world around us. So this game jam started off as a facet of socially conscious gaming. A lot of socially conscious games, if you look at like historical examples, you'll see a lot dealing with healthcare. Mm-hmm. You'll see a lot dealing with governance. And you'll see a lot dealing with education. Mm-hmm. I think those are, from my standpoint, kind of the three main arenas, but they can really be used in a bunch of different ways. What it means is that you as a game designer and developer are thinking about your game not only as being a game that's going to be played by people. Mm-hmm. You don't want to make an artifact that isn't playable, that people hate dealing with, but also that is going to go forth and have an impact in the world and get people to either raise awareness or learn new elements or consider new things, or maybe encourage activist positions and stances. There's lots of different ways you can have an impact socially, but you are making a game that will help support or cause some form of change. So socially conscious gaming really has to do with kind of the ethics and values of the people making the games and where they see their audience playing the games.
Cool. And so the way this particular jam works is the actual topic was chosen yesterday.
Yes.
Completely at random.
Completely at random from a pre-chosen list.
Okay.
And it's a similar list to the one that we used last year for the game jam, because of course we only chose one theme last year as well. So last year's theme was ruin. Mm-hmm. This year's theme was revision. Apparently the randomizer really likes ours. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to tell you the other things on that list because we might use them. We really like them. Mm-hmm. So everybody has to do things with the theme. Mm-hmm. Now, you're going to talk to everybody about what they're making for this year, so I'm not going to, go into that. But I'll say last year, the theme of ruin, we had teams who thought about it in an archaeology sense, right? Civilizations and empires that have fallen. Mm-hmm. We had teams who thought about it in terms of forest fires and the way that it actually jumpstarts different ecological systems. Mm-hmm. So what looks like a ruin might actually be a way to restore, right? We had people who made very specific, very smart and smarmy commentary about school funding. They had kids running with backpacks like, run, get the dollar, fund your public school because we don't give enough money. So they were talking about the education system being a ruin site. Mm-hmm. We had tabletop games, we had digital games. So this year it's revision. And Mav, we're both in the English department. Right. So I think it's going to be really fascinating.
I've not talked to anybody yet because I don't want to. I've walked around, but I don't know specifically what anybody's building yet. So it's going to be very much a surprise for me when I go talk to them. Yeah. You've seen some of them already. I've seen some of them already. I'm excited about it. I don't want to write anything. I'll say it looks like, in terms of format, right? Because I like that we do both digital and tabletop. Oh yeah, we should. Yeah, I guess we never said that. So it's this is not necessarily video games. Right. It's games. Now we are working with a bunch of nerds, ourselves included. Nerds. And like computer science information science, coder kids. So a lot of them the majority of them are video games. Is anybody doing tabletop or? I know of, I believe we have at least one group who's sticking with their tabletop. We had a couple early on who thought they were tabletopping, and now some of them have shifted into, this is a chance to use the game engine Unity, and I want to learn that skill, which, prop to them. But at least a couple of them. I've seen some like paper prototyping happening. Okay. I'm excited about cards. Cool. I guess you could do a mix of absolutely. So I'm going to wander around and talk to people and find out what they're building, and then tomorrow, I guess someone wins. Not just someone, Matt. We have multiple award categories, and you can be on teams of up to 5 students. So we have awards for things like best narrative design, best technical design. We also have a judging panel. Mav's one of our judges. A judging panel, like best award. But we also, last year is the first year we started a Jammer's Choice. So that means anybody who's taking part in the game jam gets to vote for the game that they think is the best. And where can people see the games when they're done, or can they? They can. It's totally public, although you do need internet access. So all of the games, even the tabletop ones, are going to be submitted through itch.io. And we can give you that full website. Maybe you can link out to us. It'll be linked in the show notes. Yes. Perfect. Of course, the tabletop games, you'll probably see reference pictures and descriptions. The digital games, the files will be available. Cool. Yeah. So that's what we're doing. And is there anything else you want to add before I... Food is important. Okay. Like I just want to dwell for a minute about how breakfast, lunch, and dinner really brings a community together. It's a nice moment. It is. I mean, so last night everyone went home.
Yes,
and then
we got kicked out of the building.
Right, and then I got here later, but you guys got here at like 8 a.m.
Yeah, this morning. Yeah. The building opened at 8. We were here. There were bagels. It's currently like 2:40 when we're recording, so we've been in it. And the building is not closing tonight.
Right. So they will do around the clock and be here coding or drawing or writing. It's actually pretty fun. And I will be right back with talking to some of the students.
Woohoo!
Okay, so now I'm going to talk to some of the teams. So tell me who you all are.
Hi, my name is Sean O'Rourke. I am one of the artists for Team 2, technically, the Crunch Time team and or the Spore team.
I'm Ari. I'm one of the programmers.
Okay.
My name's Thor, and I'm Eric. And my name is Sam, and I'm also a programmer.
Okay. So why are you the Spore team? And I know the answer because I walked in on this during the beginning yesterday. So tell me about it. What is the Spore team?
So basically, while we were coming up for a theme for our game, the theme for the jam is revision. And one of the things we brought up was that evolution in real life is basically just a revision of past like iterations of a species, which we then found ourselves on the topic of the game Spore, which is all about
pre-existing game.
Yes, pre-existing game, all about continuously evolving something into a new species. And somebody had brought up the joke of that in real life evolution, like millions of years in the future, like everything eventually evolves to become a crab.
Okay, why a crab?
I'm not sure. It's just it's an online joke from somewhere, and we all thought it was really, really funny. And that just put us down a rabbit hole of making jokes about how every single game aspires to be Spore.
Okay. So your game is now, are you recreating Spore or are you?
Our game is completely different.
Absolutely nothing.
What is your game basically?
Either or. I can kind of do a little summary of it. Basically, working title Crunch Time is about developing a game on a crunch time basis, which is kind of funny because that's exactly what we're doing.
You've got, I didn't actually do the math. It's not quite 48 hours through the entire
game. Just under 40.
It's like 46 or something like 44. But yeah, it's basically 2 days to start to finish.
And so the purpose of our game is, as Sean said, we're developers for a company making a game on some kind of short time frame. And we're kind of going for a sort of a micro game kind of gameplay. So we have a computer monitor at your desk that you play at. It's a static 2D game, so you're not really moving anywhere. And basically micro games, like little mini games, pop up on your screen and you have to complete objectives. And you need to do a certain amount of those in a day. And if you don't do enough of them in a day, well, then you start to have actual repercussions on the side of your own personal mental state with the game.
Okay.
And so it becomes like, oh, well, how many of these can I complete in a day? And what kind of repercussions will that have if I choose to work overtime or if I choose to work without breaks?
Okay. So I'm looking at your whiteboard prototype. Are there ways to improve your mental state once it starts going down? Can you take breaks? Can you go and go to dinner? Can you?
That's exactly it. So basically the social impact part of our game, one saying the name revision, you're constantly revising this game. And also we have a lot of revising jokes. But the social impact part is something that hits very close to home for a lot of us, is that you love working on something. Your entire life is tied to your work, but you are human and you need to take breaks. So one thing is we have about 3 different types of breaks. So you can go home, for instance, where pretty simply, the clock hits the end of the workday, but you have to choose to go home. You can work overtime if you want, but then you're not going home, you're not sleeping, you're not resting. Another thing is kind of the shorter end of the scale, where, like, for instance, you go to the bathroom. Wow, crazy. But the thing is, I really, we really want to emphasize that just going to the bathroom isn't a true break to let your brain, breathe. And so there's another type of break where you can take a walk outside for about 20 minutes, or you can, go and talk to a coworker. You can clean your desk. You can, I don't know.
Cleaning your desk does not relieve stress. That's the most stressful thing ever.
Okay, so maybe that shouldn't be one. But one thing
it might just be me.
Some type of break. We're going to have one thing where your life can just get to complete hell, and your entire desk is cluttered with stuff, and your vision is starting to fog and go off kilter. and your eyes are turning red, and your cursor's moving slow because, time's just zooming by you. So yeah, really, we're trying to emphasize the importance of no matter how much you want to get, work done, you can work more efficiently if you do take those breaks and you do take care of yourself.
Very cool. And I like that you guys have, you've whiteboarded out the entire interface, I assume, because I'm looking at your visual design on your tablet and I'm looking at the whiteboard. This is very cool. So good luck. Don't interrupt too much, but good luck. How do you feel about it? Do you feel like you guys are going to get done in time?
The fun is that we don't know. You've crunched on it.
Yes.
You truly don't know until the end.
Well, I mean, at some point, like literally you're doing the process. I mean, your game is doing this process, right? So like at some point you'll get up and take a walk or something.
I think we're on a very good track to get a lot of the things that we want to get done in this game.
Very cool. Very cool. I look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
And this time I am here with Pat Healy. Pat is a PhD student, so you're not actively taking part in the jam. You're more of an organizer.
Yep.
Like Fitz is. So how did you get involved in all this?
So the jam started when I was still an undergrad at Pitt. So I did my undergrad here and then immediately went from the undergrad to the PhD still here. So I've seen this event in kind of all of its growing stages. Back whenever it was Games for Health, I participated.
Oh, that's the original name. Fitz didn't mention that. So it used to be, it's a socially conscious, and now it's officially called Games for Social Impact.
Yeah.
But it was originally Games for Health, and they just didn't want necessarily all the themes to be health related.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, like the themes are kind of more attached to how the event has been funded than it is to like what our goals of the event are, to be honest. But yeah, so previously it was totally health related stuff. Even the first year that I participated when it was still Games for Health, even though it was called Games for Health, they were accepting things that were across the whole field of what we call, games for change, that sort of thing, games for social impact. So like they were like, I remember even that year there were games for things like human trafficking. Like there are games about that, which technically, one can make an argument that that's health related.
There's a health element.
Yes, yeah. But obviously we were talking more about the social component of it in those games. So yeah, I participated then as an undergrad, and then I ended up sticking around at Pitt for my PhD, and Dmitriy, who basically runs the event and ran the event, then started the event, is my advisor. So I stuck around as kind of the grad student who, I do research primarily in serious games, so very clear content overlap with the event, and kind of moved into an advisory role. I did participate once still as a grad student, but I felt a little weird about it because it kind of felt like it was a little unfair.
Well, I mean, so you are a grad student. You're a doctoral student. You're in a PhD program, literally working on this stuff every day.
Yeah, exactly.
And competing against.
And I thought it was more useful, like seeing this as like an event that the goal of it's to like grow the community of people who do research with games at Pitt, like to be in more of an advisory role where I can go around and just like, bump my head into whatever anyone else is working on and be like, okay, here are some things you can do. Here's things I've learned from things in the past. Whereas like the one time I did participate as a grad student, I made 2 games in the same jam because I was just like, I can do that. And then I did.
By yourself.
Yeah. Well, I made one purely by myself. And then I basically helped out. It was like me and two students that I knew through the game design course that I was basically TAing at that point. So it was like me helping out my students, but also playing a pretty major role. And they were both, I'm pretty happy with both those games, but it was an insane experience to make 2 games in 36 hours.
But now, I mean, so, and we'll talk about, I want to talk a little bit about your introduction game, but you are working essentially as faculty advisor here, even though technically I guess you're a student, whatever. You are certainly an organizer in the advisory roles. How do you see this working is this like just fun, or do you think of it more as recruiting towards like the methodology or the ideology, or what's the purpose of this for you? Because you said it's not just, I mean, unfair, like you could win, but also like you seem to be enjoying the actual advisor.
Yeah,
role.
I definitely have fun with it. And like, I can definitely talk about like how I kind of choose to host the jam with the opening ceremony. But yeah, I think like the goal of this jam to me has always been to try to expand the community. Just because like if we can get more and more people to participate in this thing, and maybe we put out projects that impress some people, we can kind of leverage that to expand, you know, how Sky sees serious games.
Sky is
School of Computing Information.
It's what it's what Pitt calls our computer science.
Yeah. So it's like if we can impress our bosses, they'll give us more money, kind of thing. in some ways, like it's like I think me and Dmitriy are definitely pretty invested in wanting to expand this program. I mean, there's some other, you know, there aren't that many other PhD students who work on games here, unfortunately. Like I run into them every once in a while, but for the most part, like my peers in information science do related systems, but they don't do serious games. So they do things like social computing. They look at social networks. They look at some elements of HCI maybe, but they aren't like strictly serious games researchers in the way I am. I'm pretty set on those sorts of tools, and if we're going to expand that, we need to, you know, build community so that we can impress people, so that we can get money to fund bigger things, bring in more students, and this is just like, you know, one step in that sort of process.
You and Dmitry, he's not here right now, but Dmitry is your advisor, your boss. He's a faculty member here, but you both tend to say serious gaming instead of socially conscious gaming. Why?
You know, I'm not really satisfied with like any one term we use. Like I think like serious games, I know has had like a backlash in the past. You know, it was kind of the popular term to use in like 2005, and then Ian Bogost wrote Persuasive Games and kind of killed the term. But then some of us kept using it, and you know, like I think there's. Like I said, there's an argument against any of these ones. Like I think to honestly label them as like a strict category is just like incorrect usually. like if we say it like based on intention, maybe it makes sense to have serious games. So serious games is like games that are intended for something other than education. That's the way I kind of tend to think of serious games, and that feels right to me. Whereas like social conscious games, let's say, just feels like a game that, you know, intends to be respectful or, you know, intends to be
that's fair
to take into account something like that. But really, like I think games that do interesting things like this don't necessarily have to come from intention. Like I think games can totally accidentally teach you things or something like that. Like I think there's a wider world than just the things we call serious games, and I think by trying to understand those other things, we have more interesting research. I also find like in terms of community building, I feel like we kind of have this double-edged sword as branding this as a serious games jam. Just because like it might attract fewer people if they assume that like they can only make something that is engaging with some kind of serious topic. Whereas from a community building perspective, it might actually be more useful if we just kind of let anyone come here, you know. You know, anyone who wants to make a game, basically, you know, treat this like Global Game Jam or one of these other big game jams that you know have. Global Game Jam's obviously global. It's not just a Pittsburgh thing, but there's a very large Pittsburgh chapter of Global Game Jam. So yeah, that was kind of answered two separate questions, one of which you probably didn't really ask.
No,
you know, yeah, basically, I'm not totally sold on the use of serious game. I think in some ways transformational game is actually a better term. That's more of like Shell Games term for it. Also local, but serious game's easy. It kind of says what it does in a way that doesn't require extra explanation.
So, but you would argue that the point of this event, our event, so, and I think it's very aptly named Games for Social Impact, which, you know, that's, I mean, is it catchy? I don't know, but it tells what it does, right?
Yeah.
And you would argue that how does this differ from, you know, so lots of games have a social element to them, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it'd be pretty difficult to make a game that didn't have a social impact, you know, measured small, maybe, but you know, like all games engage in culture in some way. All games have some kind of political element or social element or something like that. Like it'd be impossible to make a game that wasn't for social impact. But you know, obviously we're kind of getting very strict with that definition, I think, here in how we tend to encourage people to make certain kinds of games.
So this event starts with a ceremony that tells all the rules, and the topic is chosen essentially by a computer, but also with a human element. So, and you wrote that game. You want to tell people a little bit?
Yeah. So at the opening ceremony, after I did the keynote as well this year, which normally I don't do, but our keynote speaker, I believe, was sick, so I had to last minute throw together a thing about talking about different kinds of serious games and games for impact, social impact, and all that. So the end of that ceremony is the theme reveal, which, like a lot of game jams, we give like a one word or one phrase theme. And that theme is supposed to, give a constraint through which creativity can come out of. That's the themes are always pretty, not very specific.
They're vague.
Yeah, they're vague. They're not meant to like specifically be of content. Like, it's not like we're like... And this year, I know my example from the presentation was like, we don't give themes that are like, this year everyone's going to make games to cure depression. Like that's not the kind of thing we want, because we want a nice diversity of subject matter. So this year's theme ended up being revision, which obviously is a term that we can interpret in tons of different ways, which is totally on purpose. That was selected at random from a list of about, I think, 35 or 40 themes that the organizer had assembled. And it's randomly selected by a video game that I made. So each year, I started this last year, where I make a game that I take a volunteer from the audience, and they played through this game, and then at the end of the game, which
it's a VR game. So the
this
game
year is a VR game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, last year it wasn't.
Okay.
But this year it is. Through like this series of little vignettes and kind of bizarre sequences, eventually the theme is revealed. Each year, I tend to kind of assemble it based on what random assets I've been playing with recently. So I happened this year to be working with a lot of VR interaction, specifically like hand interactions, just because I've been working on a VR surgeon simulation for another project. So it's like...
So you had the code available?
I had the code available for a lot of these, like, VR interacting with things with your hands, pulling on stuff. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to just see what assets I have and assemble some kind of thought-provoking, VR puzzle-ish game. So the game, starts with you're on a train, and that just seemed like a very kind of serene experience. It's meant to be like, okay, here are some creative things that I feel like maybe some people who are at this jam might be able to implement themselves. So that train, for example, has an infinitely scrolling background. That is a thing that technically I think anyone here who's working in Unity could figure out how to do. I want to share some of that code with some people later today, actually, just to see, like, the point of that intro game is basically to inspire people, but it's also like, it's intentionally pretty weird.
And
like
silly,
yeah, it's a very silly game. It's a very, like this one had... straight up like a rules of three comedy thing of Tilda Swinton, where you're introduced to Tilda Swinton on the train. She comes back up as basically a jump scare when you open a door and it's just Tilda Swinton standing there. And then, of course, like the payoff of that being the end of the game sees the player have to shoot a basketball into a hoop. And once the basketball gets to the hoop, you know that the theme will be revealed, and Tilda Swinton shows up to block your basketball. So yeah, it's a very kind of surreal experience, but the point is to have like a bunch of different interactions that all kind of work in different ways, maybe have different kinds of puzzle mechanics, just to be like, okay, here are some possible things you could implement quickly that'd be thought-provoking.
So in that particular game, so you have Tilda Swinton doesn't just show up to block your basketball.
Yeah.
In order to win the game and reveal the theme,
it's true.
You have to kill Tilda Swinton.
Yeah, you do have to, which I would say, having seen, actually specifically, you have to decapitate Tilda Swinton.
Yes, you have a sword and you have to decapitate Tilda Swinton.
Which was definitely inspired by 2018 Suspiria.
Okay. But given that the theme was social impact,
yes.
The socially conscious thing to do here is killing Tilda Swinton, who's delightful, by the way. I'm a fan.
big Tilda Swinton fan over here, and I like to think that in the video game version of Tilda Swinton did survive the decapitation. I think
because she is still smiling.
She is still smiling after. Yeah. Exactly.
And you have to decapitate her, and then she no longer blocks your basketball shots. I felt, and I told you afterwards, I felt as though you shouldn't have been able to win the game by making the basket. You should have had to shoot her head through
and that was the thing I just didn't think about at all. I mean, this game, and like when I did this last year as well, like I basically have a mini game jam to myself 2 days before the jam. So like this was almost completely developed like Thursday night.
Awesome.
I finished at like 7 a.m., took a nap, got back up, and was like, okay, time to go present for this jam, I guess. Which it worked out. There were no major bugs, luckily, except the giant spider. I guess that was a major bug.
Oh, was it?
Well, no, he is a bug.
Oh, it's a bug. Okay, I thought you meant
There actually was also. I meant to have it so the sword would kill the spider, and that it didn't work. But whatever. I just forgot to attach a script. And I was like, okay, no, it still works.
I mean, the spider not dying does not affect the game. So
exactly, yeah. It's not part of the puzzle. It's just would have felt satisfying, probably.
Well, that's very cool.
Yeah.
So are you, you have had a chance to like sort of wander around and see people. Are you happy with how it's going? People seem...
Yeah, so far. It's still early by, Game Jam standards.
Mm-hmm.
We have another 20-ish hours or something like that. I think a little more than that before they have to submit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm expecting, more... we probably have like ideas for games are all set in stone now.
Yeah,
and
one would hope.
Yeah, one would hope. And those seem pretty promising. I've seen a good mix of digital and analog tools. A lot of tabletop games, which last year was kind of the first year that became more of a presence year, which was cool. The Judge's Choice winner last year was a tabletop game, and I think a couple of the other like runner-ups and stuff were as well. So, it's nice to see that mix. It's nice to see people taking on problem domains that are all different. Like people were not inspired by Revision to only do the same thing, which was good.
What if everybody just made exactly the same game as last year? It's just a new version.
Yeah, we have had problems with sort of repeating things in the past, though. Like my first year, whenever I was still an undergrad participating, like that we got like 6 games that were all related to human trafficking. And it was just like everyone's doing the same project domain or problem domain because like that was really pushed, which I think is part of the advantage of a theme like what we do now with Revision this year. Anyway, but yeah, I'm happy with things are going, but like I said, it's early, so none of the fires have happened yet. I'm sure 2 a.m. I'll be running around.
Good luck, because I will not be here at 2 a.m. Yeah. Nice thing about being faculty and not a grad student, I'm going home and going to sleep. I'll come back tomorrow.
I'm sure all the messes will happen. People will realize that the scope that they set out was too big and all that.
That's the fun. It's a learning experience. I mean, what's fascinating about this to me is like, yes, it's a silly vibe, kind of, but effectively, this is just a weekend of doing extra homework.
Yeah, kind of is.
I mean,
yeah.
but it's a fun homework project.
Yeah. So. It can be, at least. Yep. If people lean into it.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Of course. And I'm going to go see what some of the people are presenting, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay, I have joined another group. So tell me who you are first, and that way we at least know that.
Oh, I'm Jaden.
Jaden.
Hi, I'm Gray.
Great.
Hello. I'm Noah.
Noah.
And I'm Alex, and our missing man is Colin.
Okay.
He'll show up one day.
Well, hopefully before we're done, he'll wander in. But okay, so tell me, what did you guys build? Or what are you in process of building? We are in the midst of, we are, how many hours into this?
2 minutes.
23 and change.
So we are doing for our submission a psychological horror-based text adventure. How would you guys describe the monster in this incomprehensible? That's my favorite word.
Eldritch. Johnny Bravo.
Just like a representation of like anxiety, right? That's like the
That's the theme that we're going for.
Yeah.
The horror here is about anxiety, mental illness, and the monster is kind of stand-in for that.
The monster is a stand-in for... Okay, so it's a text-based adventure, which I think is cool, because one of the things that I wanted to point out to the listeners is that we're doing all kinds of different games. So you guys have that, and How much of the monster is described?
Very
Almost
little.
none.
Almost none. There are a couple little hints that kind of give you like an impression of what it might look like. Like we know it has a mouth. We know it's capable of slithering, and we know that it has a very kind of inhuman voice that's like kind of like static that you can hear in your head. But the rest of it is meant to be up to the reader's interpretation. We find that less is best when it comes to this kind of horror.
And I found it interesting. So when I first came in here before, you told me you guys are using Twine, which is a platform. It's a framework that you can build games in. And I'm wondering, what challenges did you find unique to this? Because I know that it's actually a lot trickier than probably people think. It's not just writing a story.
Well, speaking on my behalf, I'll leave the coding up to Alex. But I think because we don't have an artist, it's been a little bit difficult to kind of convey the images that we're trying to describe, as well as the environments. Like if we had an artist, I would probably say that we would have hand-drawn backgrounds to show like the setting. But I'm trying to figure out workarounds with that, and I'm trying to use stock photos, but pixelating them so they kind of have like an 8-bit weird grainy feel.
So there is a visual feel to it. I mean, even without having someone who, I wouldn't say you don't have an artist. I would say you don't have someone whose job is primarily art. You are being the artist. You're all being the artist. So you are trying to still come up with a visual theme to it so that you feel like you have a cohesive experience.
Yes, that's exactly it.
We got the sound, though. The sound is great.
Oh, yeah.
Music.
I want to know about that, so I'm going to move over here. Is it going to play? So you did this early on, right? Like,
Yeah. So just to reintroduce myself, I'm Noah. I'm the primary composer and sound designer for this game. So I wrote all the music and most of the sound effects that show up. I designed them basically. So yeah, basically from square one, like once we heard the theme, once we decided what we were doing, I kind of just started writing up ideas for what we were going to do, because we knew pretty early on we were going to do a horror idea. I mean, back when we had formed a team, our basic idea was we can do a visual novel or a horror style game. So I already had an idea as to what I was going to try to do. And then once we figured it out, we kind of looked at inspirations. I know Gray showed me some stuff from Halloween, I think.
Halloween, the movie.
Yeah, to get an idea as to the kind of feel that we were going for like a chase theme. But I will say the most difficult part of this was cutting everything down for size.
What do you mean?
In if we were doing a platformer, I would have like a 1.5-minute long song that just like loops, because there's more I can do with that. But with a text adventure game, I wanted to have songs for different scenarios, because we have different scenes, we have different rounds, and I wanted to have a theme for each. And I needed to get all the information I wanted to in a short amount of time as possible, because some people are faster readers, some people are slower, and we wanted to make that work.
You created a lot of extra content, though, I think, right?
Yeah, I created just a bunch of stuff, and then whatever worked we used, and whatever doesn't work will be available later as a Bandcamp album.
Yeah, we want to make kind of like a soundtrack for this that people can download.
That sounds like a cool idea.
It will be on the itch.io page if anyone's interested.
And I want to know a little bit about, so part of it's obvious, but I talk about it explicitly. Since we're doing this thing about social gaming, and you guys chose a mental health issue as opposed to, environment or something. So why?
It felt more obvious, honestly.
It's more obvious.
Yeah, it felt like once we decided that we were going to do a horror game and we heard about the theme, it just kind of fell into place, I think, at least for me.
Well, when I was thinking about what kind of game I wanted to do, I did want to do something horror related, because I think that's my main strength as a writer.
Okay.
And I was trying to think how could we kind of take a supernatural monster chasing you through a house? How could we apply that to a social issue or something that someone would find scary, but for different reasons. So using the monster as kind of a metaphor for mental illness felt like he said, the obvious route. And it also felt like there was a sort of broad appeal to that. So the way we have it described, the monster, like what it says to you, because there is dialogue, we feel that could be interpreted in so many different ways. So each player, I think, would have a different experience playing this. I think it has the chance to mean a lot of different things to different people.
Sounds cool. I'm excited to see this. And I've seen a little bit of it. You guys gave me a little demo earlier, so I'm looking forward to it. And this will be on the site when we're all done, so everybody can listen. All right, thank you.
Show it off.
Thanks. Okay, so now I am talking to Dmitriy Babichenko, who is another professor here at Pitt, and you are in the, I guess we call it Sky here.
The School of Computing Information.
So, and you are one of the professors here, and in particular, Pat mentioned you earlier in the earlier segment, but you started this entire endeavor.
Yeah, so it was kind of an interesting story. It almost started as a joke. What happens when a pharmacist and a computer scientist walk into a bar? So basically, I'm friends with two very good colleagues from the School of Pharmacy. I used to have a secondary appointment in the School of Pharmacy, so I used to teach a data analytics class there. Mm-hmm. And I collaborated with these guys a lot. So Dr. Ravi Patel and Dr. Victoria Grieve are two of my colleagues. And one day we were just basically drinking beer and talking about games. And the conversation kind of came around, well, we're doing a lot of health-related projects. We're doing a lot of work with...
health-related projects with beer.
Beer and games. So, yeah, exactly. And we were talking about how games should be used more widely in healthcare, for mental health, for education, et cetera, et cetera. So there are a lot of applications in healthcare for serious games. And I don't remember which one of us said, but one of us said, hey, why don't we make a game jam? And everybody said, yeah, sure, let's do it. So
you have access to a lot of students, so just make them do the work because
exactly. So we named it Games for Health and just went around and begged and borrowed and stole money. Raised basically about $20,000 that first year to run the event. Wow. We had a very nice turnout. We had close to 100 students in the first Games for Health. And
how long ago was that? What year?
So that was 6 years ago.
6 years.
6 years ago. This is our fifth, actually.
Because
we skipped
COVID.
1 year because of COVID. Mm-hmm. We didn't want to do it online, so we didn't have this event in 2020.
Okay.
And then last year we came back. So this is our fifth event. And we usually have about, on average, between 50 and 75 students participating in it. And we rebranded it to Games4SocialImpact because after first year, a lot of students who participated, they had no interest in healthcare research, but they came from sociology, psychology, political science. They were more interested in games that are related to those areas. So we ended up rebranding the event, and it's open pretty much to the entire university.
Mm-hmm. It makes it, we were talking about that a little bit with Pat. It's still a a socially conscious concept, but it opens it up a little bit, which probably makes more sense, I guess. So it's been going on for 6 years. And what do you think the impact is on it for students? I mean, because you're approaching this as a professor. Pat has been on both sides. He was a student when he started, and now he's a grad student. So he's sort of an organizer. You've always been an organizer. Do you see a useful impact to your students that participate?
Oh, absolutely. So first of all, it's a wonderful portfolio piece for a lot of students. So I hear from previous students that they actually use the game that they built as part of this event to get a job. So it's an excellent portfolio piece if the game is polished enough. And even if it's not polished enough, you can still kind of demonstrate what you're capable of doing in 24 hours. And now imagine what I can do if you have... if you give
6
me more
months,
time.
Yeah,
exactly. And then another kind of huge benefit to students. Well, there's several, but one that's really important to me is that it introduces them to the idea that games can actually be used in non-entertainment environment, and then the skills that they learn by developing games can actually be used outside of entertainment industry completely. So in healthcare and engineering, in whatever, education, and quite a few students who participate in these actually end up working for other faculty and faculty research labs. At least 2 students every year who participate in this event end up in my lab. So actually, 2 of the students who are here now, they're already working in my lab. So that's another benefit to students and obviously to me. And then one kind of probably the biggest benefit is that they get to work in teams. I think this is where the university falls short in a lot of aspects. So once you go into the industry, there's no way around working in teams. Right. So you have to know how to talk to people who are outside of your domain. You have to know how to adapt. You have to know how to take into account, a lot of personalities, a lot of possible tensions, et cetera, et cetera. So this is, for a lot of the students, this is the first opportunity they may have had to actually work in a team.
Yeah, well, just wandering around and getting to talk to students who are working on the projects, this is very clearly, for them, this is an exercise in interdisciplinary project management. As much, if not more so, than it is an exercise in coding, right? They know how to do that. They do that every day. That's like if you are a computer science student, you are going to write code. If you're an English student, you are going to write papers. You are going to, this is literally the aspect here is, okay, you're in charge of this. I'm in charge of this. I can see them meeting and working with each other and like divvying up work and figuring out, very short-term deliverables, but deliverables nonetheless.
Exactly. Yeah. And, I hear them worrying about the scope of the project and features and what they can do, what they can't do in such a short period of time. And it's, I think it's a very nice experience in time management as well.
Yeah. I mean, and to me, it's been fascinating to watch these last few hours, just because, having been on project teams, having my former life when I was a software designer, seeing them in real time just sort of experience the stress, how do we manage these problems that, as you said, it's 24 hours, 48 hours for them, but it's 48 hours, but they're still experiencing the kinds of project problems that you would have on a 6-month or a 6-year project.
Exactly. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to watch. Do you find, just from a humanities point of view, it's not just a coding project. And it's not even just a games project. This is specifically games for social impact. It is socially conscious. It is serious gaming. It is. Do you find that is a advantage, or is it? Do the kids see it as a stumbling block to be? It's not what they're going to think. You can't just come in here and I'm going to make Call of Duty. That is the exact opposite of the entire point, unless you can come up with a good reason why Call of Duty is socially conscious. How do they see that, or do they?
It's interesting you bring this up. We actually had this conversation with Pat on the drive here this morning, and he was worried that we may be losing some students because of the kind of seriousness of the games. And my counter argument was that you don't necessarily have to make a serious game in order for it to have some kind of social impact. So take Civilization, for example, or SimCity or Democracy. So those games are designed for entertainment. So by definition, they're not considered serious games, but at the same time, they actually have a lot to teach.
Okay.
So you can potentially design an entertainment game which has a social component. So you can design an entertainment game that, while you're playing, it teaches you empathy, or it helps you, let's say you have a bad train of thought, let's say you're suffering from anxiety. It may be a game that's designed primarily for entertainment, but an additional benefit of it is that it gets you off that bad thought train, right? So, but I think the fact that this particular event actually is constrained by theme, it kind of forces the students to think a little more and to approach their design and outlining their deliverables a little more deliberately.
I got to talk to one of the groups, and they're like, "Yeah, well, we think that we'll hit the majority of our deadlines," and just the idea that they know that there are things that they have to sacrifice, but that's sort of what you do in a project. But also, I think it's fun. I mean, at the end of the day, Fitz pointed out that these games are available on the website. You can, and I'll link to them in the show notes. You can download these. You can play them. It is still going to be fun. It is still a game. It's not just, we're not just building socially conscious software. It's socially conscious gaming. And so I think that's, I think that there's probably something in the idea of teaching them that you can do both. That it's not necessarily an either or proposition. You can do good stuff and do fun stuff at the same time.
Exactly, and that's one of the reasons why I love this event. Pitt has a lot of hackathons. I used to participate and I used to mentor for other hackathons, and eventually I kind of stepped away from it because. I don't know, because it's like a lot of it is just on a personal level. I think for a lot of hackathons, the focus is not quite where I wanted to see. They all teach students teamwork. They all teach students how to work together, how to come up with deliverables, all that same stuff. But they kind of lack that fun element, and which is why actually. Initially, I always bristled when somebody referred to this as a hackathon. I'm like, no, this is not a hackathon. This is a game jam.
And also, we are constrained by the fact that most of the participants are computer science students. But it's not even a video game jam. It is specifically games. You can do a tabletop game. You can build whatever you want. It's just that
So actually, the computer science students are in the minority here. What's interesting? So very few students here are computer science students. So we have information science students. Okay. So the majority are digital narrative and interactive design DNID. This time. DNID. The second largest group is information science. Okay. And,
so there's a lot of variety then.
And CS is in the minority. Unfortunately, this year the diversity is not quite what I was hoping it would be. Okay. And this kind of makes me sad. So I went to political science classes, to sociology classes, to urban studies classes, and I pitched this. And even though I kind of stressed the fact that you don't need to design a video game, it can be a card game, it could be a tabletop game, it could be an ARG, whatever you want to build is fine as long. But we just don't get too much participation from majors that are outside of Sky or DNID.
Okay, so that's something we should probably work on in the future. Not that they're obviously I love our students, that's why I'm here. But that would be one of the things that I think that the DNID program I know because I work there, but also I think in general one of the nice things about socially conscious computing is that we are trying to push that as a thing, whereas maybe in other humanities, since we're always thinking about that, we don't think about pushing the gaming aspect of it. So hopefully, as the event grows, it becomes less of a hackathon. Again, and it's weird because I don't think either of us want to sort of diss the idea of hackathons. They can be fun. I've gone to them, but
absolutely.
But it's I think what's interesting is that this can be something more, something different, which hopefully. Well, I'm very much looking forward to seeing what the final products look like and to playing them, which is because I think that's the ultimate end goal is that at the end of this, we end up with a bunch of fun toys, right? That are also useful.
Jess and I, we started having conversations with UCIS, the University Center for International Studies, about leveraging game-based approaches to cultural preservation to attract a wider variety of students to these types of events and to these types of projects. So hopefully next year, I have high hopes for having a larger event that would involve a lot of students outside of Sky and DNID.
Okay, sounds good. Yep. All right. This is exciting. I am looking forward to it. Thank you for talking to us, and I'll see you out there on the floor.
Yep. See
Bye.
You. Thank you.
Okay, I have another group. What are your names?
I'm Marky.
Okay.
I'm Magda.
I'm Emily.
I'm also Emily.
That's confusing.
And I'm Roy.
You know what? I'll just be EJ.
Okay, so what is your basic game concept if people had to...
Well, basically the general idea is that we have this character that goes through 3 different events, and the game focuses on the idea that a lot of us tend to ruminate on a conversation that we had or an interaction and try to replay it over and over again and wish that we could do things differently. So they kind of try to rewrite those conversations.
Okay.
And they're like worrying about it a lot, but in the end, they have to learn that they can't change the past, and so they have to accept whatever outcomes,
There's no
whatever
magic.
the reality of the outcomes are.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a couple. 2 of them are more positive, and one is more like a neutral, negative sort of.
So there are scenarios.
Yeah, there's like, so the first one is them trying to like make a new friend on the first day of school. Another one is they go on a date, and another one is an internship interview. So we made it like college age, because that's a tough time for a lot of people. So
So what is so what kind of game is it? Is it like a role playing game then, or is it action? How does it work? Or
It's kind of like a role-playing game that also has more of a choose-your-own-adventure feel.
okay,
Yeah.
I like choosing an adventure.
yeah, the revision theme like comes into play because after you see these frames and some dialogue that happens in the original scene, you kind of move around like a page in a journal and get
Okay.
to change some of the words.
You move around the page in a journal. What is this? So you mean visually? I'm just trying to.
Yeah, visually there's
You're a little sprite that just
a little
like,
doodle
yeah,
that moves around.
Oh, that's neat.
in your own like diary.
Yeah.
So you get to try to change the past. You get to see an outcome.
Oh, so do I get to see the diary? Like I get to see like
Yeah, you get
what
to
I
see
wrote?
the story in front of you, and
Yeah.
you get to try to change some words.
And that's more of in like a poem format, the way that they write in their diary.
That's very cool.
Because it's more of an emotion than a story to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you had to sum up the theme of, I guess the question is always going to be, it's supposed to be some kind of social issue. What is your issue?
I think yeah, like ruminating and being and worrying too much
Worry,
about
okay.
what you
Anxiety.
how you act in the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Being in having conversations in different scenarios where you feel like you have to be more than yourself.
Okay. The general theme of revision, pretty obvious on yours because it's
Yeah.
literally doing the same thing over and over again. So I think you nailed that one.
And then it builds into the idea of acceptance that you have to just know that the past is the past. It is what it is, and the only thing you can change is the future, instead of trying to change what you remember.
What are you calling it? What's the game called?
We don't have a name yet. We'll have a name tonight. Yeah.
It's very cool. I like it. I like it as an idea. I'm curious to see it. What is your platform that you're developing in?
We're working with, we don't know the pronunciation. We call it Godot, which is similar to Unity.
Yeah, Godot. Yeah, I think it's actually called Godot, but I'm not actually.
We've heard Godot.
I mean, it would be so. It's spelled like Godot. I call it Godot because of Godot the person.
Yeah, the actress.
I think of it because of waiting for Godot.
Yeah, waiting. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
is that's your sprite?
Yeah, we have a little. She looks like a little doodle. She's see through, and so whenever you have like a little writing in the background, she'll be able to fly right over it like she's a pencil drawing.
Oh.
And she can just go wherever she wants.
Okay, so do you have your background? Because I'm curious if it's going to look like a journal. Will my final game look like my diary? Like, will I be able to have like little lines where it looks like I wrote on them? Or
Yeah.
Who's your artist?
Who's your artist?
We still have to get the background though, because that's the main thing that we're using the text for that as the background. But after each time you choose, they have like a little it's like someone doodling in a journal basically. So it's a very quickly chicken scratched out drawing of what resulted from the situation that the person created, and it's very exaggerated ones in a way
because it's in their head.
It's in their head, and so it's got a paper texture on it. It's got there's lines and stuff in the back of it. It's there's black, blue, and red pens on it for line art, and then it's very faded markers that they colored in super messily to the scene. Yeah.
There's been an idea that as we continue revisions, it gets more messy.
I like that.
And darker possibly. it kind of depends on like how much time we have.
That is always that you are not the only group that says it. there's a thing of stretch goals when you're doing something like this. You have a base concept and then you try to get it as close as you can. Well, best of luck. I look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
Okay, so what's your name?
Aiden Brewer.
Okay, Aiden, you are the first person that I've talked to that did this by yourself. You had this. We offered people the opportunity to do teams of 1 to 5, and you are a team of 1.
That I am.
Why? Why make this decision?
So that requires some background. It was mentioned on opening night that there was a sim coach internship that some of our current contestants had participated in.
Yes.
I was part of the level below that, the sim coach apprenticeship.
Okay.
Ran for a much shorter span of time. You were in teams of 4 and you made 2 games each over the course of 2 weeks after 2 weeks of training.
Okay.
A couple of those apprentices are here at Pitt, and I was wondering if I could bring some of them in. And I got last-minute dropouts from a lot of them, unfortunately.
And then rather than not do it at all, you said, I'm going ahead.
I'm just full steam
by yourself. Okay, well, and you worked. How did you work all the way through the entire 40 hours, or you just leave?
No, I value my mental health, so I did go to sleep at some point last night. I think probably around 12 o'clock after working on and off from, I'd say maybe 10 o'clock in the morning to then. So I got decent progress. It helps that I was able to artificially limit my scope.
Okay.
Because I knew I was one person and I knew I couldn't do all the things that I'd want to do.
That's very smart from a design point of view.
That actually reminds me I need to make a quick change to the thing I submitted. Anyways, I knew I was limited. So I knew, all right, what am I focusing on? Telling a good story. What can I use to tell a good story? Twine.
Okay, so you did twine.
Twine, yes. Because I knew I wouldn't need a lot of stuff that Unity has or Pygame has. I wouldn't need that stuff to do what I was trying to do.
So did you build a text-based adventure entirely? For our listeners, Twine is a tool primarily used for building. It's more complicated. It's mostly choose-your-own-adventure type style games.
Yes, yes. So that's essentially what I made.
Okay.
And it has a branching story. Do you want me to...
Yeah, tell me about the concept, please.
So I can sum up the game concept in 2 words. I came up with the 2 words as I was working my way through the opening night. I had jotted down some ideas and I was making some progress, and then they came in my head and I couldn't get them out. Those words are literally 1984.
1984 as in the...
the novel by George Orwell.
Okay.
I have just created a gamified version of 1984.
That's kind of awesome. Okay, so...
Because the theme is revision. And the little journalist monkey in my brain who forced me to be on the high school newspaper for 2 years said, journalistic integrity, do it.
Okay.
So that's what I moved forward into.
So this is kind of smart, because if I'm guessing, and you're a team by yourself, so if you say you're making a gamified version of 1984, this means that you can just download from Project Gutenberg for free in its entirety. Is that what you did?
It's not quite ingsoc, and it's not quite... what was the name of the language they were trying to use? I can't remember this moment. But it's the basic idea of totalitarian state, control of the media. You play the role of and that's in the opening. Your role has a bunch of different names. Your official government employment form 412-7C whatever labels you as a mandated information filter, human resource. Your neighbors call you a gill man, which is short for guillotine man, because you axe the parts of stories that shouldn't be going to the public.
So your job. Okay, so you're editing. Your job is you're one of the.
Yeah, above you is the writing team. They write the articles. Then there's you. You make sure nothing that shouldn't get to the editing team gets to the editing team.
Okay.
And then you send it down to the editing team, and they get it to the print team, and then it goes to print.
Very cool.
The only problem is things are afoot.
Okay. So there's a mystery.
So it's less a mystery, more of a moral dilemma.
Okay.
Because you start out your week as you would any other week, and as you start your week, you get a number of articles that have entered your inbox on your computer, at your desk, at your office. and you just have to go through them, and there are only a certain number of them that need your attention. It's 4 on the first day, but that 4th one looks weird. The weather report shouldn't be coming to you. Why do you have the weather report in your inbox? What's happening to your computer? Who is this Phoenix person? Why do they want you to spread their message of...
So, all right, well, this sounds really interesting. I'm going to look at the game, and good luck as we go to the competition, which is coming up soon.
Heck yeah, thank you.
Tell me about the game.
So,
solving the event in their region.
Authors of the New Age is a science fiction game all about revisionist history. Where essentially, the goal is to spin the narrative in the favor of your faction to thus control the past and control the future. So, on a turn, what happens is an event card is drawn. So, this one is associated with the blue faction. There is some kind of political tolerance going on. Some political leaders within the world government have been struggling to work together. And this costs 0 supply and 1 influence token.
So, for example,
every player starts with 10 supply and 10 influence at the start of the cycle. Players go around and bid, trying to outdo each other to gain control of the situation and thus become the heroes for the faction in history. After 8 cards have been played, whoever has the most points gets to choose one event in history to rewrite and thus gain control of that narrative for their faction, gaining a victory point. Whoever has the most victory points at the end of 3 rounds wins. You can also gain victory points by having the most remaining resources and the least amount of disdain. If you fail to bid during any of the events, you gain 1 disdain. If you lose a bid, so let's say you belong to the blue faction and you don't win this card, you gain 2 disdain. The total amount of disdain you have at the end of the round subtracts from your points.
This one is an interaction with the player.
That's about it. After 3 rounds of play, 24 events,
you have someone else call it.
Whoever has the most victory points has successfully rewritten history in their faction's favor. So that is the authors of the New Age.
So, rewritten history because now you're matching the theme of revision.
Yes.
So, tell me about the generation. So you clearly 3D printed all those tokens this weekend.
Printed all these tokens. We didn't have time to get all of the tokens done, so we had to substitute with dice.
Okay, so those. So dice are not
just be cubes.
So dice are not rollable dice. These are just
tokens that we didn't have time.
Temporary cubes to represent. Okay.
And then you also get to choose a faction leader to play as.
Okay.
Each of them has an active and a passive ability.
Textbooks.
Like for example, this gentleman here, this handsome fellow, his name is Terox, the Ever Living. His active ability allows him to resolve an event automatically if he's the last one to bid, but he cannot bid on the next 2 events.
Okay.
And his passive ability, he can remove 1 disdain at the end of a cycle. So after 8 cards are played, he automatically loses 1 disdain. So he's a very high risk and high reward character because he has great potential to be spun as someone very good.
But other characters might be lower risk, low reward. So more stable, but harder to win because you can't.
So this or disdain.
The leader of the Crystal Basilica Church can remove 2 disdain from another player, but they have to be paid in 1 supply to do so.
Okay.
So they could potentially be a great ally to someone else while also gaining more wealth just by playing passive. Kind of trying to play everybody's buddy in order to win ultimately in the end. So each different faction leader emphasizes a different style of play that also reflects how different governments and powers have kind of functioned throughout our own history. We chose the sci-fi setting to kind of hold a mirror up to our own world and reflect upon what our past consists of in a theoretical future setting.
So obviously, so it's very obviously allegorical.
Yeah.
Okay.
The least
so it's like does the board have the board is just a holder. It's a tabletop game, but it's really a card game, right?
It's really a card game. So this is the active zone where the timeline is, where all the events take place. And then we didn't have the time to print these, but these would each be the current player characters' revision decks.
Right.
We're basically, when you choose to revise an event in history, you draw the top card, and it would say, so let's say you're playing as the robot pirate faction. One of your revision cards would be something like, at the last second, the pirates swooped in and saved the day, rescuing the people from this great catastrophe. All of these cards aggrandize your faction.
Okay.
So mechanically speaking, they're just an extra thing, but it adds more flavor to the world. And the map itself is also meant to show relative space within the solar battles as opposed to being tactical battles.
Okay.
Exactly.
And you guys drew all of this weekend. It was just
Using a combination of vector art as well as hand-drawn art. And we have rendered these tokens with 3D printing. These are just all of the all of the card assets were
I did not sleep.
as well as all of the character boards have been rendered with vector art, hand-drawn art.
And then you just you laser printed them. This is
we used the vinyl.
That's exactly what I was going to ask.
They're vinyl stickers on cardboard.
Yeah, just cardboard.
And then with electrical tape. And then we also have how to play and the round flow on the back of each of the boards.
Yeah, because this has a nice heft. I mean, for a prototype, this has a nice heft to it. So this is just cardboard.
It's cardboard with vinyl stickers on it.
And your game board is
an old Dungeons and Dragons battle map. So it's like cardboard with vinyl stickers on it.
But you're just using it as stock for it.
And I didn't mention the best part. After the game has been played, you organize all of the events in history on the Grand Galactic timeline in order to visualize who has the most control over which parts of the narrative. Because we focus all on revisionist history.
Very cool. So it is a two-sided board.
Yeah, it is a two-sided board, and it's meant to flip afterward.
That's clever. I like that. Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
So that's just a sample of the students and colleagues of mine from over the course of this weekend. There were obviously many, many more. There were 13 teams in all that competed in the entire event. And I am happy to say that all of the students that you heard on this particular broadcast were some of the winners of the event. The Jammer's Choice, which was the award chosen by all the participants, that went to the game Crunch Time. That was the first team that you heard that wrote the game about creating a video game. The Judge's Choice, which was chosen by my colleagues and I, went to Authors of the New Age, and that was the very last team that you heard, the ones that had a board game where you rewrite history. The award for Best Narrative Design actually ended up being a tie between two teams, the team of Disquiet, which was the team that had the narrative choose your own adventure game where you fought a monster that represented anxiety, and Vision, which was Aiden, the one-man team where you saw a game based on 1984. And finally, the award for Best Visual Game went to Paper Problems, which was the game designed around a diary and rewriting your day through a fairy that flew around your diary. It was adorable. There were also two other awards for technical achievement, which went to a game called Society EXE, which I did not get a chance to interview that person. And the first Penguin Prize, which is for the most innovative game that really, really pushes the boundaries, what we call the first penguin into the pool. And that award went to Logic Bots, who I also did not get a chance to interview, but they were both very, very fascinating. You can find all of the games linked on the itch.io site for the event, which is linked in the show notes of this particular episode. It was a lot of fun. I am looking forward to doing it next year. I hope you learned something listening to it, and I hope you get a chance to try out some of the games. You know, the kids worked really hard on it. I would like to thank all of the students and all of my colleagues for participating and for being so nice as to let me interview you so that you could appear on this particular episode. Next week, we'll be back to our regular scheduled programming. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, all the places, always at Chris Maverick. You can follow the show, all those same places, at Vox Popcast. You can follow the show's blog at www.voxpopcast.com, where you can find out what we're talking about next week. I'm not really sure. We've got a lot of shows in the works. So go to the blog, comment on our calls for comments, tell us what you like about the show. Tell us what you like about the episodes. You can comment on this episode and tell me what your favorite interviews were. What games are you looking forward to playing? If you enjoy the show, and we certainly hope you do, then please subscribe to us on iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify or wherever the hell else you get podcasts from. And do me a favor, leave us a 5-star review. If you leave us a 5-star review, especially on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, that gooses the algorithm, makes us more popular, and really helps us out. It especially helps us out if you don't just leave us a 5-star rating, but you leave us a 5-star review. You just write a little something that just talks about how much you enjoy the show and tell me what you like about it. I always like to hear that. Always makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. I would once again like to thank all of my many guests for joining me this week. Way too many people to mention right here. I would like to thank Maximilian of thoughtForm Music for our epic theme song, building ever so more epically and playing us out. I'd like to thank you at home for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.